Good morning, it is the 3rd of February, 2022. We're back in the studio. Thank you for putting up with this yesterday, I appreciate it. It was a little hard to make things happen when we all had to be at home. But it is a frigid day here in northern Colorado. We're like -8 degrees and then the wind chill brings it down to -1,000,000. So there's that. And I'm just happy to be back in the studio today. I have a lot of news. Speaking of the cold, Polestar has something very special going on with an Arctic Circle project that I'm very excited to talk to you about. It's being tuned by a former rally driver. A lot of news with Silverado EV and Hummer EV and the reservations that are out and so much more. And I think you're going to be excited, at least if you're anything like me, with what Ram might be calling their next EV. All that and more is to come today on Daily Car News. First things first, we start with Polestar 2 Arctic Circle. It is a one-off, almost prototype-y project that Polestar is doing to, I guess, tune and develop their car even more for the snow. What they've reasoned is the less traction you have, the slower you're going, and the more fine details you can get into with your cars. It's being developed and sort of engineered and tuned by former rally driver and now current chief chassis engineer Joachim Ridholm. He is again former rally driver and now works as the chassis engineer for Polestar. Very cool to see. Again, testing in low grip allows them to manufacture and fine-tune details that are missed at low speeds when you're at a high-speed track. Very interesting to see. The Arctic Circle project has tuned suspension, studded tires, but interestingly, stock brakes. So very cool to see. Cars are so much different in cold weather like it is out here today. Your tires are hard, right? Especially electric cars, your batteries are cold and it's just not performing as well. So to see them, a Swedish manufacturer like Volvo and Saab, taking cold weather so seriously is very nice to see. And I think they can lead the way in terms of this. There is no current plans to release any Arctic Circle type of thing in production, but obviously all data is data, and I'm sure if they're good engineers, and they seem like they are, they're going to keep an eye on what's happening with the Arctic Circle project and use that to develop further cars and make them better, especially in the snow. Now, moving to America, GM recently had their Q4 earnings call, and they released some numbers about the Silverado EV and the Hummer EV. 110,000 people have reserved a spot in line for the Silverado EV. And about 240 of those, maybe a little more, 240 of those are individual fleet operators. So very cool to see here. We're starting at $42,000 for the Silverado EV. No other specs yet other than some we are aiming to hit this. We are aiming to do this type of mileage or this type of 0 to 60. I'm going to wait for the specs to roll out before we get into that. They are going to be built in Michigan alongside the Hummer EV pickup truck and SUV. Now, speaking of those, we have 59,000 pre-orders for the Hummer EV. That's the pickup and the SUV combined, and also 25,000 pre-orders for the delivery vans that GM are manufacturing. Super cool to see. Now, speaking of another, former Detroit Big Three, Ram, now owned by Stellantis. Stellantis recently had their EV 2022 day, and they released plans for the Ram EV pickup. Now, we don't know anything, right? We don't know anything other than it's expected to enter production in 2024. No compromises are the words that they've used. And they have trademarked Ram Revolution, they being Stellantis. Ram Revolution. Now, this could be for something else. This could be just to get it out of the way so no one else takes Ram Revolution. But our EV, Evolution, it works. And, nothing is confirmed yet, but this is a strong hint. I kind of like it. Ram Revolution. It fits nice. It really does. We have the F-150 Lightning, the Silverado EV, the Cybertruck, and the Ram Revolution. So, a lot of players in the EV pickup truck world ahead. Very excited to see this. I love cars in general, so I'm very excited for everything. But that's a cool name, and I hope that the car that they make will be cool as well. Let me know your thoughts down below on Ram Revolution. Now, Jaguar and their Panthera has been spotted testing. It is still in its camo spec, so we don't really know anything. But it seems to us that Jaguar is repositioning itself as a more luxury EV-focused brand, more than before than just with the I-Pace, right? Now, they have a bespoke architecture called the Panthera, and it's sort of like, Tesla's skateboard, battery, wheels, motors. It's sort of like that, where each major company, Stellantis, Ford, Tesla, Nissan, Toyota, Jaguar, are making this sort of skateboard that they can put different bodies on. And that's what this seems to be. It'll support all Jaguar models after 2025, and we are still going to see internal combustion engines come from Jaguar after, but no new ones, right? Now, currently the I-Pace is for sale, and I guess it's doing its thing. I haven't really heard too much about it, but I'm excited to see if Jaguar is going to go ahead and move up in the rankings of electric vehicle manufacturers. Go Panthera, I guess. Now, speaking of Toyota, Lexus and the RZ 450e have just been shown in renders. More renders than before. In late 2021, Toyota and Lexus were like, hey, never mind about the whole hydrogen thing. We're going to go all in on electric. And they released like 30 cars, 30 renders of 30 cars, I guess, and a couple of rolling chassis. But the 450e, the RZ 450e, has just been shown by Lexus. It is the new Lexus EV crossover, looking to be unveiled in the spring, and it's going to be built on their eTNGA EV platform. And that's shared by Toyota and Subaru. And again, it's similar to what I was mentioning before. Battery, suspension, motors, and wheels, sort of all in one. And then you just put the car on top. Now, new photos give us a better look of the RZ's front and rear halves. And I think it looks good. It's a more squared off, little smaller version of the very popular RX. And I like that they're keeping the sort of trademark, right, the iconic black C-pillar on there. It's admittedly one of my favorite parts of the Lexuses, just that black C-pillar. I'm biased. I used to be there when I was a kid selling Lexuses and washing cars. Now, the Ford head of communications has shared on Twitter that 60,000 SUVs were sold in January of 2022 alone. This is up 12% from last year. This is a great start for Ford, and it shows how the Bronco and the Bronco Sport are very popular, and it's likely leading the way with the sales. Now, we're also counting, the Expedition, the Explorer, the Escape, everything that they have. But I think the Bronco and the Bronco Sport put Ford back on the map when it comes to SUVs. And it's like, oh, hey, I heard the Bronco is back. Let's go check it out. And then you walk out with an Escape, right? So good job, Ford. 12% up from last year. 60,000 cars sold in a month. SUVs alone, that's something to notice. Now, Ford's sort of main competitor, Chevy, has lost its Spark. The cheapest car made in America is gone. Well, will be gone. It's phasing out. They still have inventory. They're not going to produce anymore, but, that's it. The Chevy Spark will cease production by the end of August and will phase out soon after. The cheapest car for sale, $15,000 just before MSRP, or just at MSRP. Confirmed there is no immediate replacement. And also, rest in peace to the manual transmission. That was one of the only cars on sale today with a manual transmission. This thing, it's the Chevy Spark. Everyone has sort of seen it. It is a little tiny Detroit nugget, made about 30 miles per gallon city, 38 highway. So very, very cool little car. But I can sort of see why not many people bought it and why Chevy is saying goodbye. Now, there are still other cars that are selling for sub 20 grand. We have the Nissan Versa for $16,555 and the Mitsubishi Mirage for $16,125, and those are both including destination fees. So if you are in the market for the cheapest car for sale right now, there it is, the Nissan Versa and the Mitsubishi Mirage. Now, I wonder if we're going to see this sort of race to the bottom in the EV world. Again, we had a story where the Dacia, oh my goodness, what was it called? But basically, they had a car for 15 grand, all electric. This thing is going to stay inside the cities, but let's bring that here. Let's make that happen here in the United States. I would love to see that. Now, the Spark is gone, but there might be a successor taking up its place. While not at the $15,000 price point, GM CEO Mary Barra, quote, affordable EVs are a national and global priority, right? Now, they plan to follow an Equinox with a more affordable EV, and the Chevy Ultium architecture is sort of showing what different models could be like. Again, platform, battery, motors, wheels, car on top. Now, these animations show a silhouette of something Camaro-like. The Camaro starts at about 26 grand. Maybe that'll be the successor to the Chevy Spark, an electric Camaro. You know, the Ford Hybrid is $20,000 and it is selling like hotcakes. And I think Chevy is seeing what they need to see. And I hope that we see a little tiny Chevy pickup truck in the future. Maybe we'll see. Now, going from the cheapest cars on the market to something that's not so cheap, the Mercedes V8 isn't dead just yet. Orders are open for G-Wagons, GLS 580s, GLE 580s, the Maybach GLS 500, and the AMG GLE 63. Orders are open. They're taking it in. After dropping the cars for 2022, like Arnold, they'll be back. The supply chain issues, I guess, which were sort of bottlenecking their supply chain and their cars, have been taken care of miraculously, and I guess we will see the V8 back with Mercedes. So I guess it's never really gone, you know. So much for that, right? Now, I love this. I think the sort of AMG V8, the twin-turbo V8, is one of the best-sounding engines ever, right? So we're going to have to see if we can get one to test here, just for my right foot. But I guess, you know, congratulations, Mercedes and Mercedes AMG, for keeping the V8 alive just for now. Now, speaking of Mercedes, the 2022 Sprinter is here, starting at $38,300 MSRP for the cargo version, $45,300 MSRP for the passenger van. We have active brake assist available. Gasoline engines are now available, and they can tow up to 12,125 pounds. Isn't that cool? Right? It has the new MBUX system. So if you're into camping, camper vanning, or if you happen to be a business that needs to, you know, tow around 15 people, Mercedes has an answer for you, and it's the 2022 Mercedes Sprinter van. Now, something that isn't necessarily car related, but is very car related at the same time. If you don't know, I love racing. And the pinnacle of racing is Formula One. Formula One teams are just about to release their new cars. Just earlier this morning, the first one was going to be Red Bull on the 9th, but Haas beat them to it. Tomorrow morning, the 4th of February, Haas F1 team will be releasing their new car, their new Challenger for 2022. All but two teams, or all but one team, I guess, Williams, have scheduled their debut for the 2022 cars. Now, if you are unfamiliar with F1, there's a lot to catch up on, but if you're going to start, next year is going to be the year to start watching. The new rule changes have changed the cars so that way they will be able to follow faster, or should be able to follow closer. The racing is closer. Overtaking is easier. We're going to have to see. Testing is going to start on March the 10th. And the first race will be in Bahrain on March 18th. I'm excited. If you're a Formula One fan, please throw it down below. I hope you're excited with me. Let's go ahead and get this season off and running. So, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a weird day in terms of news. A lot of sort of EV news, a lot of pickup truck news. But, you know, it is the car industry and nothing is ever the same. If you'd like to follow me, our socials are down here below on the screen. At Gary Fisalvo on Twitter, at _Daily Car News on Twitter as well. If you have any tips or tricks or anything that you happen to hear, you know, any whispers that you happen to hear in the car industry that you want me to know and me to cover, go ahead and send us a shout. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you tomorrow.